Very good.
Yes, we're live streaming now.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, April 10th CVTA Technical Advisory Committee. Want to welcome everyone. Hope everyone had a joyous weekend. And we will now certify to see if we have a quorum.
Town of Ashland, Miss Amos.
Here.
Charles City County, Mr. Mitchell.
Here.
Miss Russell. Chesterfield County, Vice Chair Smith.
Here.
Miss Walker.
Here.
Goochland County, Mr. Goyne.
Here.
Mr. Coleman.
Here.
Hanover County, Mr. Bidunez.
Here.
Mr. Flagg. Henrico County, Mr. Ure. Miss Smidler. New Kent County, Miss Inman.
Here.
Miss LeDuc. Powhatan County, Mr. Shardine. City of Richmond, Chair Clark.
Here.
PRPT, Miss Dubinsky.
Here.
Mr. Wagner. VDOT, Mr. Totten. Mr. Riblett.
Here.
Miss McAdory. Virginia Port Authority, Miss Nelson.
Here.
GRTC, Miss Torres. Miss Sink. RMTA, Miss Dean. And Plan RDA, Mr. Parsons.
Here.
Thank you. That concludes the roll call for attendance, and we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Item number 3, consideration of amendments to the agenda. Does any of our members have any? I do have a slight change. And I don't think it needs an amendment, but just putting item 8 before item 7. Barb and Chess, are y'all good with that?
I'm good.
Okay. Check, do we need anything to switch those items? Do we need any vote or are we good?
Just to be safe, let's go ahead and vote.
Okay,
Voice vote, if that's all right.
sure. So I asked for consideration of the amendments to the agenda to move item 8 up, which is the regional leveraging funds for PE conversation before the project selection and allocation framework, only because I think that that's a subset of that framework, and then we could maybe start there really quickly and then go on to the rest of it. With that, all in favor of that change, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Awesome. Action is approved. Now we need the approval of our March 13th TAC meeting minutes. Do we have a motion for the approval of those minutes as presented?
So move.
I'll second.
Thank you, Gary and Austin. With that, voice vote will work. So all in favor of the approval of the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Awesome, that motion passes. Item 5 is our public comment period. Have we received any comments, Chad or Ms. Firestone?
We have not.
No.
Awesome. So we'll move to item 6. I don't have a report. I mean, I'll talk during the items. But otherwise, I don't have anything specific to say. All right, so right on to the next item, which is the regional leveraging of funds for PE. Just to give a little quick backdrop, and then Barb, you can let me know. I know there was an email sent out requesting for those wanting to do the 30% of the leveraging to be in by April 7th. And Chet, I received ours on the 30th, but I didn't get it over. So I wasn't sure if others had. So I'll go ahead and let Barb discuss the letter that she sent to me as the chair in regard to this item. And then I think it'll, cause for any other discussion. Ms. Smith, Vice Chair Smith.
Yeah, at our last meeting, we talked about the possibility of using leveraging funds that had been approved for projects, but for projects that weren't successful in Smart Scale, to get some of that funding to develop 30% plans. And I would say that from my perspective, it seemed like there was general consensus supporting that idea. And we're working on revising the framework document to reflect that discussion. But in the meantime, we've got Smart Scale just around the corner again. I think people will be this fall talking to their boards about candidate projects. And in order to keep the ball rolling and to make some progress on design, we would like to move forward the idea of setting aside 30% for design effort. So I think that sums it up. We're hoping that CVTA TAC can make a recommendation so that it can go to the Finance Committee on Wednesday and then be discussed by the full authority at the end of the month.
Okay. So I know Richmond had some need, will also wanted to submit. I think we have, we have 2 projects that we want to request the PE for. Were there any other localities that had questions about this item or the 30%, the letter that is being requested? Austin.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of wrapping in both this topic and the next one is I saw it was already kind of baked into the revised framework. I think the revisions that were sent around and what's on the agenda for today is the question of that I've got is, if we ask to move forward with the leveraging dollars on hand for 30% design, do we, whatever estimate is needed, whatever funding is needed for that 30% design, does the rest of the funding get deallocated from the project?
Yeah, thanks, Austin. And so if you all didn't know, I, at the past CVTA Full Body Authority, gave an update on our parking lot items in this review framework from March 10th. Well, of course, hot off the press that morning, we had a March 30th version. And so, yes, in that March 30th version, Austin, there is like some deallocation of the ones of the 30%, which I think was I at least hadn't come in agreement with that at the moment before we go through our discussion. But yeah, so there's 2 things really on the table, everyone. It's as we go into the framework, is I think we're all in agreement that 30% would be for design, PE would be good for those failed Smart Scale. And now the question becomes, are we gonna do localities want to keep those funds for other funding sources to try and get it successful, whether it's a federal program or Smart Scale again? Do you just reapply for the CVTA project and those funds be deobligated and you just reapply outside of the 30%? Or does the locality, for lack of better words, maintain the dollars that were allocated and only 30% is being approved for spending, but could still have that leverage CVTA funds for other federal or other grant opportunities? So that's a conversation. So I open up, Austin has his hand up again, open up for us to have that conversation. Austin and then Joe.
So I guess that was my initial understanding is that we were going to leave all the dollars on the project, while understanding, for Goochland's sake, we have almost 34 million on our Ashland Road project. I guess I understood we would take all 34 million forward for another additional rounds of leveraging, while also using a portion of that funding for development. I don't know if I'd be in favor of, at this time, getting rid of the funding, because we are very interested in pursuing 30% design on the Ashland Road DDI. If we can't find full funding between now and June or July, we're kind of obviously up against the wall for that timeline for the 24 to 29 6-year plan. But we're following some things in the state government and some federal opportunities that I don't know if we could stand to lose the other money. So that's my concern with that.
Joe and then Todd. Thank you, Austin.
Yes, Madam Chair, I just want to clarify that what we're talking about is not 30% of the dollars that have been set aside for leveraging, but to get to a 30% design stage. And we should, before we, if we agree to that, we should be pretty clear at what 30% design would represent. And I'm in favor of that. And the other thing I think I want to listen to some of the arguments, but right now, I think my preference would be to, if you want to pursue 30% design, that you forego the remaining dollars. It goes back into the pot so that we don't tie those up. And like I said, I'm open to hear other arguments against that, but I think that's the prudent thing to do.
Thank you, Joe. Todd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And sorry I was a little late to the meeting. I think my recollection of previous conversations on the balance, so anything above what was needed to develop 30% plans, would be to keep it on that project for yet another round of smart scale, if that's the funding source being pursued, but push the allocation year out so that we're not tying up near-term funds, regional funds, and keeping in mind that if you're now applying for the next round of smart scale instead of current, your timeline for needing those funds is further out. So it kind of accomplished what Joe is saying, in that we're not tying up money, because the money, if let's say it was allocated for FY 28, for example, but is not recommended for smart scale funding, then you push it out potentially 2 more years in preparation for the next round. And then if it's not successful in the next round, per the framework document, the money goes back to the pot.
Yeah, thanks, Todd, for that. A couple of our folks here kind of stated the same thing, in that really, for example, I think it may be approximately, and I do apologize if I said 30% leveraging, but it's 30% PE design for the project. But also in that it is an out year, and those dollars, we haven't collected them yet. So really, it's not like we have $100 million free, because we haven't collected it. We won't collect it until further out. So that was just one added point that some of our staff was making as we were talking about this. But I'll keep going. I have Mr. Riblett and then Ms. Inman.
Just a quick note, we do have a staff recommended funding scenario for the smart scale applications for round 5, but that is not the final version that the CTB is likely to approve. We anticipate from previous rounds that there will be changes made to that. So my suggestion would be for CVTA not to actually make any changes effective until after the CTB finalizes their approval for smart scale round 5.
Good point. Thank you. Ms. Inman.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon. So I guess I'm in agreement with keeping the dollars on the project. I agree that we need to clearly define what we mean by 30% design. But I guess I would caveat that by saying, if people go and do their 30% design and then they come back with a completely different project, or oh, by the way, now we're going to add this, this, and that, then that's a different project, right? So we have to be real clear about what the 30% design is going to do, right? That the 30% design is going to be not going and opening it up for new alternatives or adding capacity or adding other elements to a project, but it's clearly to focus on the project that was originally, allocated the funding.
Okay, yeah, and I think it could be some time back into the document, but yes, maybe some kind of guidelines on the 30%. But like Barb was saying, we are a little pressed between actually doing something. So we would need to do something fairly quick and kind of those guidelines or structure for the localities to know what 30% design gets you. I think everybody at our technical levels, everybody knows, but just so everybody's on the same page.
Yeah.
But just again, we would have to do that fairly quickly in that, as Barbara's saying, and my staff said the same thing, which was, we can say we're going to do 30% design, but because the smart scale application process is coming right up, are you actually going to have 30% design done? Becomes a question. Yeah, we'll need to talk through that as well. And Mark, I don't know if you had another question or your hands left up.
My mistake. I will take my hand down. Sorry about that.
No problem. So with that, Chessa, you've heard a little bit from us.
No, that was awesome. That's good intro to the framework document and needing to finalize particularly the leveraging section. So I think we just keep the conversation going and pick up on the leveraging section. And basically, as you guys picked up on, we sent the March 10th version, what reflected where we last discussed retaining the approved leveraging funds for 2 rounds, and we provided more detail. So March 10th represents that scenario, which we can go through in detail. Post sending that, we going through it and trying to define the different scenarios and how to provide clarity on that, holding 2 cycles and allowing for PE, converting some to PE, etc. It just got very complicated or pretty, I don't want to say convoluted, but there's a lot to capture there to define. So then we said, well, there's the other option that we didn't discuss at a group. So we were bringing another approach forward, which was the March 30th version, which was keep it simple. You have approved leveraging funds. You're not successful. It goes back to the pot. You reapply. That's the simplest version. So that's the second version. And so why don't and I'm hearing from folks that the preference, Joe had said you were still good with maybe the simpler version. Some others are still supportive of retaining for 2 cycles. So maybe it would be helpful for the discussion purposes if we go through let me back up. The version where it's you apply, you're approved, you're not successful, it goes back to the pot. We do think that there is a hole in that scenario because it only accounts for smart scale. I think, Darana, you had provided that comment, and I know folks may want to use their approved leveraging for other sources. So like right now, revenue sharing is going to be coming, apps are coming in this year, the raise grants following out of the sky whenever. And so folks may want to use their leveraging funds on other funding sources beyond just smart scale. So that simplified version of just everything getting deallocated, if you weren't successful, you wouldn't be able to then use those funds for other funding sources outside of smart scale. So that may not be, while it's simpler, it may not be how they want to use their leveraging funds. So I'm going to bring up then the version that the 10th version then that describes retaining the leveraging for 2 cycles of funding and see if we can agree to the language and the changes. So there's first paragraph here encourage everyone to go after leveraging funds. We say such as smart scale, but we know folks may want to use it for other sources. And then we added these 3 different scenarios. So the first scenario that we added, and again, we were trying to capture everyone's thoughts from the last discussion was, and we keep using one of our examples to kind of work through this. So no change in leveraging amount. We had a project, a smart scale project. We had $20 million of leveraging approved. It wasn't successful. This paragraph says that we could retain that 20 million in our first attempt to obtain funding, the leveraging funds, and then we could retain the full 20 for another cycle, and that we would entertain adjusting the leveraging funds to account for inflation. That's the only adjustment. Basically, you retain your funding amount. Another scenario is you want to adjust your leveraging amount. So in the example that I just gave, we had 20 million of leveraging. We were not successful in smart scale. Miles did his exercise to say how much more money would you have needed to be funded. We would need it based on his analysis of the last round. We would need another 7 million. So this says if we wanted to increase our leveraging amount, the project sponsor may request a new amount for leveraging. If this new amount is not included in the recommended funding scenario, so meaning we weren't approved for smart scale, the sponsor can adjust the request or retain the amount of the original leveraging, and that will be your second attempt to fully fund. If the adjusted leveraging amount is approved, the sponsor attempt to fully fund the project will be considered the first attempt. So what we're trying to capture is we had $20 million. We need 27 to be competitive. We're now going to go in with a new amount of 27. That then would be, if it's a 27 is approved for funding, then your clock starts over, and that's your new that's a first year amount. Does that make sense?
It does. I have one question just on that one, because I'm not seeing the difference and you'll get to the next one when we talk about, I think I read it in there, when you talk about like requesting more money. So that's kind of like what Amy was talking about, if the scope changes. So, like, how are we going to discern that it wasn't a scope change versus it's the gap that smart scale says?
So I could add some language here that says that basically that your scope needs to be the same. You're just requesting a different leveraging amount for the original scope, if that's what everyone's.
But my one question would be, why isn't that just a new application for the additional money?
Right. Well.
And then just a little bit on clarity on what you're writing there about recommended funding scenario. I don't know what recommended funding scenario you're talking about. It sounded like just now you said smart scale, but I'm like, are you talking about the regional funding scenario or the smart scale? So maybe something there to get me clarified. But anybody else? I think I see Amy's hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so if someone's coming in to use 30, money for their 30% design, then maybe they need to clearly articulate exactly what it is they're going to be doing, right? So as it relates to that project that had been selected for funding, so that it's very clear up front that we know that they're sticking to the scope of the original project.
So I can add, Amy, I can add, I think I need to add something in here. This is the scenario where you have approved leveraging and you want to convert a portion of it to do PE. And I could say to develop 30% plans, and then we could add clarification here about define, 30% plans, scope, no change, add some text here.
Maybe like a memo to file or something, memo to CVTA that would go in their file that we know with the project that
Mhm.
we're all clear on what they're gonna do. And if anybody comes back with with an expanded scope,
Then
then
that's a new
that's a new
application.
project.
Yeah. Okay, we can do
Maybe
that.
that's the way to handle it in an immediate time frame, since we don't have a lot of time to.
And do we say that in here anywhere, Chessa, in this section about when it reverts to a new project request? I felt like maybe in your 30th version, you may have.
If you change the amount. Barb, I may need you to help me with this one. It's a new
Yeah.
project,
Right. You can have the same scope, but change the leveraging amount.
right?
And that's this adjusted leveraging amount
Yes.
in
That's
a
this one.
scenario. Yeah.
Right. But if the scope of the project changes, yeah, that's a whole new.
That's a new project. So we can
Project.
add clarity.
Yeah.
on
Okay.
that.
I see that. Okay, good.
Yeah. So go ahead, Barb.
When we first drafted this version that we're looking at, I was really focused on smart scale only.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about each of these different scenarios as being, or you do this, or you do that, or you do, but there is the possibility that someone, can you scroll so we can see page 9 more?
Mm-hmm.
Now that Dorona pointed out that someone might want to use this leveraging for revenue sharing or a federal grant. It could be that there's no change to the leveraging amount because let's say I'm going after revenue sharing and those applications are due soon. So, okay, I'm going to keep my leveraging. I'm going to go after revenue sharing. And
30%
instead of or.
Exactly. And you want to do this.
And I want to go do adjusted leveraging for the next round of smart scale in case the revenue sharing doesn't work out.
See how complicated.
Go
So
up a little bit, Chessa, to the no change. Okay, yeah.
So
I think the no change, I don't think, to me, Barb, I think with no change to leveraging amount and adjusted leveraging amount is an or. To me, I don't know if that's and I'm just saying because
there's a situation where we've got revenue sharing applications due October 1st. And there's not enough time for me to adjust my leverage amount. I want to hold on to what I got, go after revenue sharing. But now I've learned from Miles what I really should be asking for smart scale. So I'm going to also ask, I'm going to do an adjusted leveraging request.
Right.
But in the meantime, time will pass. I think I might know if I was successful in revenue sharing in time to be able to say, oh, forget it. I got the money I needed in revenue sharing. I don't need to go after smart scale. So there's
now I can see
potential.
that.
Yeah. So we would put in a revenue sharing application and leverage the 20 that we got approved. And we would also in the fall submit a adjusted leveraging amount of 27 for the next round of smart scale. Because it's a and condition.
And or
30% for people.
And you could also come in, see why we submitted the easy one. And you could also do the first two, and you could also come in. You could also come in and say, I want to request a portion of the leveraging funds to be converted to develop 30% plans. The leveraging available for the second attempt so if we had 20 million, we would request $1 million to do PE. We would retain 19 million in leveraging.
Unless we asked for adjusted leveraging.
Unless we asked it for adjusted leverage. See, that's what I'm saying. All the scenarios.
But we're still, that's like your everybody like, in a candy store. So maybe we can't have a candy store option,
Well,
because right now it's like, any which way we can, use it. And maybe we just need to tighten it. Todd has his hand up. Todd?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mhm.
Going back to the scope language, I think we want to leave on the table the ability to reduce scope as opposed to no scope change, because project specific, sometimes you have the option of removing scope elements so it scores better the next round. So I think we just say no increase in scope.
Mhm.
We do evaluate. We do the benefit evaluation. So if you cut scope, you're going to be reducing benefit.
mhm, could be.
And so that does kind of, it's sort of different because our round 2 in CVTA leveraging was we funded everything. But down the road, cutting scope could reduce benefits and could mean that the project ranking is further down. I think that's a change. Like,
Good point. But I think we also need to consider the fact that we don't want to punish people for trying to reduce scope to get the project more competitive. But to your point, I guess depending on what scope you remove, you're potentially impacting benefits. So,
But if you remove costs, maybe it's not a detriment.
So can there be a threshold if on the reduction side, like in terms of the benefit? I mean, I don't know how that scoring works. But if there could be some way we could say it wasn't, it didn't change the benefit by X amount of percent or whatever, then it's okay. But if it goes significantly changing the benefit, then that wouldn't count.
yeah, I think you're still having to do all the evaluations, so you may as well
Yeah,
just.
you still have to do the evaluation, right?
So everybody, what are our thoughts on this section? Because ultimately, the difference, I guess, between again 10 and March 10th and the March 30th is the deallocation of funds. So this is what we have to work through if we don't want to deallocate.
Correct.
If so, we need to have this. We need some okays from everybody on this section, and put on clarity or anything.
I think we need to use, unfortunately, this more complicated version to allow people flexibility to go after different fund sources.
Yeah, I agree. And do we have consensus then that we want to stick with March 10 version? And we'll have to, get this anyway, because I think
those are really and or, Chessa.
yeah, because we need action on this. Yeah, and or.
So you can keep your leveraging the same, and or you can request a different amount of leveraging, and or you can convert some of your approved leveraging to do 30% plans. And there's details with each of those, but
I'm good. Do you want to touch on any additional items?
Austin had his hand up.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
I got it.
Austin.
No, you're fine. On the adjusted leveraging amount section, I've been sitting here thinking about it, but if I'm really have a problem with the way it's worded or not, but to fully fund the project will be considered the first attempt with the new leveraging amount. I don't know if, to me, it would be the second time on the exact same project that we're leveraging money. I don't want that to be, we're going to just continually chase smart scale on a project and all of a sudden we look up and we're 4 or 5 rounds later because the project costs are going to increase every single round. I think that's a given. So I don't want to get into a scenario where we're just continually chasing smart scale. So I think it should still be limited to 2 total attempts for the same exact scope, regardless of leveraging amount.
So that one was tough because I was me, Chesterfield, thinking of all of our large loser projects in smart
Mhm.
scale. We have a number of them that are never going to get done
Right.
in smart scale unless we buy them down, and you can only chunk them up, interchange projects so much. So are you saying you have leveraging, you go after smart scale twice, you're not successful? Can
I
you then?
guess, well, so I'll use you as an example since you brought up your bigger projects. I don't know, maybe you have $100 million project sitting out there that to get it on CVTA's books, in theory, you could just request $5 million to get a cost benefit score in your favor, get the 5 million, and then just continually add on and add on. And
Oh,
then
I see. Yeah.
you get the 75 million and then you fund it. That's my
But you're,
concern.
Yeah. Well,
but you're requesting it. It's not guaranteed.
true.
You're making a new request for additional money. So let's say you had $100 million project
Mhm.
and you said, I need 20, didn't work. I need 30, didn't work. I need 99. The CVTA might go, we're not gonna invest $99 million on this project, and they would turn it down. I think that there is going to be some consideration to return on investment, like Miles's exercise, where there might come a point where people decide, is this project really worth this amount of money coming from the region or not? And we do have a sentence a little at the very last paragraph in this section. A subsequent request for leveraging should include documentation to support requested leveraging amount.
Mhm.
That's very vague, but what I was thinking there was that you say something along the lines of, we are not able to cut the scope. And in the last round, it looks like this would have been successful if it had this much leveraging. Something to kind of justify requesting another hunk of leveraging money.
Joe?
So just taking a gigantic step backwards for a second. So what is the objective? And I'm just putting this out there. What is the objective for if you were unsuccessful with a round of leveraging and then coming back and doing a 30% design? I would presume that one advantage, I guess, would be that you would be able to develop a plan and have a more accurate cost estimate, presumably a lower cost estimate, because you would have more detail and less uncertainty in that estimate. And that just kind of also inherently the fact that you actually have some design would somehow score you some credit in some way. But what are we trying to achieve? I guess if I was asked that question, what do I tell management?
It's to help mitigate the risk that's built in with the VDOT estimates.
Right.
To define the utility situation better, the right of way better. Yeah, to better
essentially what
inform
I
the
thought.
estimate. I don't think that you're gonna, the amount of money you spend to do 30% plans isn't going to reduce the project cost significantly, but I think the details that you get from 30% will help develop an estimate without having to add in a whole bunch of risk factors.
So generally what I thought. Thank you.
Any more questions or comments? Did everybody get a chance to review the document? Again, during the full body meeting, I kind of put out some of the highlights. And I know that they, start stuff, then you gotta keep doing stuff. So now they wanted kind of like some bullets on everything that's changed.
I can
So
do
I
that
don't
for
know.
you, Dirona.
You did perfect.
No, I will.
Oh,
I will.
good.
Yeah.
And I can send you what I kind of captured already. But I did want to make sure that everybody on here was aware that, the updating the framework removed that at least one project should be selected from each of the 7 project categories.
Yeah, we didn't really talk
Mhm.
about that one.
And then it also removes that at least one project should be geographically located in each of the 9 member jurisdictions. So those were a part of the project selection process that those were removed, and that we had this added priority, and it's not so much related, but we do have the added priority project as an eligible highway category. But it is going to take away that everybody that puts in will get something. And I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that and get any input on that. Check.
Yeah, I mean, I think we might have a little bit, oh, sorry, I didn't have my hand up.
Go ahead, Amy, because Chet moved his hand down.
Okay, sorry. I think we still need to be considerate of everybody, I mean, to the extent that we have eligible projects, I mean, it's not a guarantee, right? But I think, whether this is just in, maybe the fundamental premise of regional funding is that, the money should benefit the region, right? And the region includes more than just, 3 counties. So that's where, I think we do need to make strides towards addressing other needs that localities have within the region. And, not everybody has $100 million interchange projects in their county, but we might have, a $60 million project, right? And yes, we can, obviously, I mean, we put it in there so that we can submit one project that isn't considered regionally significant. So that's helpful. But I do think that we need to make strides to acknowledge the needs of the other localities outside of Richmond, Chesterfield, and Henrico.
And removing those, you think that all of the projects would only go to those 3 localities?
Well, I mean, I think that we need to do a better job of acknowledging that there are needs in the county, in the region, that aren't quote unquote these big regionally significant projects, which you all categorize that really are just within the 3 jurisdictions primarily, right? So I guess what I'm saying is I wouldn't suggest that it's a guarantee that everybody get something, right? But I do think that we need to do a better job of acknowledging the needs outside of the massive regional projects.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
yeah. So okay.
Yeah, and we believe me personally have been fighting for the rules since day one. And so I consistently understand, but there are large projects that have to be completed. And even, in Goochland, in New Kent, we were able to do the 100 million for the 64. So, rules are getting some money greater than so I'm just saying that we have been doing a good job. We want to make sure that our policies will maintain doing a good job as we continue to move forward, I think is what, we're hoping that the review of this selection process and all of that really continues to make everybody, feel inclusive and like that they're going to have projects funded at the end of the cycle. So yes, we hear you loud and clear. We have Barb and then Chet.
Yeah, I wanted to emphasize the same thing, that the full authority is very cognizant of geographical balance and trying to be sure that everybody is heard and listened to. And I would say that, what we've emphasized a lot in talking about CVTA regional is that, someone from Chesterfield could regularly use a project in Goochland or Powhatan and vice versa. We're not constrained by boundaries, our county lines. Our folks are going throughout the region, and this money is focused on regional projects. And, again, if the General Assembly had wanted us to all spend money in our locality, it wouldn't have been split up the way that it is. So I think that this framework document should be more focused on the technical side of it and let the politics play out the way the politics play out. Which is why I don't think it's appropriate to have those two bullets here.
Chet.
I have one pertinent item and one unrelated item. So following on the current discussion, I think that I tend to agree with Barb's comments just now that this framework is only for the 35% regional. So there are lots of other components of the CVTA that could benefit all 9 localities, regardless of the type of project or the size of the project or the extent of the project. The other thing I wanted to raise is that we are working on a separate item with Finance Committee right now to update the financial policies and procedures guidance document. And part of that is dealing with what we have called in this document the reserve. And I'd like to request that we scrub the concept of having a reserve mentioned here and change that to unallocated balance entry, because the financial policies document is going to mention a new reserve that is actually a reserve and not just unallocated funds. So I think it's just semantics for this this framework, but before we put it in front of the authority, I'd like to make sure we make that change, as long as everyone's okay with it.
Thank you, Chet.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, me too. All right. Let's see. Do we have? Oh, I have one comment, Chester, on just spelling out the VDOT cost estimate workbook or cost estimate in one of the sections. You just go straight on page 5. I tried to see if there was a place we ever defined CEWB.
Oh, cost estimating workbook. Yeah, I'll spell it out. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
I had a minor suggestion also in, down in the leveraging section where we say such as smart scale, to add revenue sharing, federal grants, just so that when we get new TAC members, they do start thinking about leveraging in other funding programs besides just smart scale. It might be a good reminder.
Mhm. And then I didn't see any other big changes. So are we all good with this? We need a motion. And I guess in that motion, Chessa has to make a couple of I guess minor changes, but we won't have any substantial changes after the vote.
Yeah.
And then we talked about the item 8, which was the letter. So how many, I know Richmond has our letter ready. I'm assuming Chesterfield has theirs. Do all of our localities have a letter ready to ask for 30% if they're gonna ask for the 30% design money?
I guess, are we leaving the funds allocated to the project? Has that been?
Well, yeah, that's when we vote on this. When we vote on this version, we're gonna leave the funds.
All right.
And I was kind of like you too, Austin. I was like, I'm not sending this until I know something. But
Yeah.
so we have, if everybody at least have the letters ready, we can get them over to Chet. Well, my folks addressed it to me and then copied our Richmond representative and then the chair and then Chet. That's what we did. Do we need anything different, Chet? You're looking like, don't send it to me.
I think as long as I'm CC'd or somebody here is CC'd, we're good.
Yeah, that and ours can be changed. It's not a big deal. Todd?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So to Mark's earlier point, if we're talking about asking for the 30% to start design for round 5 smart scale projects that aren't funded, we don't know that they're not funded until June, correct? So is it premature to make that request? Or are we doing it?
I guess, can we ask and then sit on it?
And just remember, the sitting on means, and people know whether or not they're talking to their CTV member or talking to VDOT about getting something included. So, you just don't want to waste time because you want to actually do some of the 30% design to get the benefit in the next step. So that was the only reason why we were, again, looking for something specifically on the 30%. And this would be, if we brought forward to the finance committee and then the full body, here's the updated or revised framework document, and with one of those changes, here are the letters of the localities requesting that 30%. They don't have to go hand in hand, but again, so maybe Mark, you're on here. Can you tell us how potentially, using a portion of something that we're saying is unfunded, we haven't yet gotten a smart scale decision, but we are willing to or want to do 30% design if it does indeed fail. How do you think we should go about this process there?
Doretta, my recommendation would be not to change anything until a decision in the application cycle is actually made. If you've committed
and
to.
So let's talk about that, Barb. Yeah. What do we envision? So I know, like in our letter, I don't know, it says like the total cost for PE is like $2 million, and what we're asking for 30%, of course, is like 30% of that. And I don't know if that, I know it doesn't literally do anything to what the authority approved. It would take some action of actual reduction, which I think would be reduction and pulled out into a SPA in which somebody can actually begin the work. So is there any need for the letter if indeed VDOT doesn't want us to lower any price by the 30%? Barb, and then not want, but recommend.
Okay.
Barb.
So let's say we have $30 million project with 20 million in leveraging. And it's not that you take PE, your total PE, and apply 30% to that. That does not equate to 30% plans. So for us, on our $30 million project, we need $750,000 to get 30% plans. So let's say VDOT, I'm pretty sure that project's not going to get funded, but let's say it does. I would still be committed to the $20 million in leveraging. And if I spent all 750 between now and July 1, I'd have to go find 750 to replace. But there's no way I'm going to spend all 750 between now and July 1. I may spend what I need to get survey done. That's probably all I can get done, really, between now and July 1st. So there is a risk to a locality if everything lined up great and we can get our 30% plan funding in place. I can get a SPA in place and I can get a consultant working. And then I incur expenses before July 1 and VDOT miraculously funds this project that I don't think they're going to fund. I would need to make up that difference, however much I've spent.
Mhm.
But I think the risk is really low.
So it's on the locality.
Yeah, the locality would need to come up with the missing money. You know, and I guess that could be could it be another request from CVTA Regional? I spent $50,000. I need to make it up, and here's my application for it.
Don't ask me.
We'll deal with that later.
I don't like that question. I can't answer it. Chet has his hand up and then Austin.
I don't like the idea of asking for $50,000 from CVTA Regional. But anyway, that's not what I was going to talk about. If this helps make things any easier, the authority meeting schedule is pretty sparse. I mean, they're meeting April 28th and then July 14th. So it's either get something in front of them immediately or not till after Smart Scale is decided.
Which is what Mark was saying.
And we're
All right.
losing time.
Yeah, okay. We're gonna take a vote, figure it out.
Oh,
Austin,
no, that's not what I meant. I meant we're losing time to
spend the money.
make any progress on 30%.
Yeah. Oh, no, I know.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. Like, we want to decide it today. Austin.
Would there need to be I'm not advocating for this, but is the thought that there would be a timeline required to do 30%, or could we put in the request to use some of our funds for 30% design, but then in theory never do it? I guess that's we're not saying we're going to spend any of it, but we would like to if we need to, pending other funding sources and vice versa. So what's the thought on just requesting it but never actually doing it?
Well, yeah, and I think that's what we were saying, but I think some people want to do it and some people are okay with waiting. So that's where we want to figure out the happy median is we would need something to get to the authority, and we're going to be putting the framework in front of them as well as like something implemented out of the framework. Do we want to put the framework and then wait, which is of course a lot of months? It's July. It's going to be after Smart Scale is decided, but you're going to have a shorter time frame to actually do any of the design work if you actually want to do the work and don't want to wait. So anybody else have any input?
Can I comment on what Austin said?
Yes, ma'am.
So I think if someone were to say, I need the money for 30% design, and then just never got around to doing anything, it's just going to mean they've not gotten the benefit of a more informed estimate for Smart Scale. I don't know that is anything we need to worry about, really.
Right. I guess I was trying to figure out, were we trying to set hey, I want to do 30%, okay, that's fine, we'll approve you to do it, but you need to initiate that process within 60 days or 90 days or anything like that. I didn't know if that was the intent of this, or could we request it on a project, a failed smart scale project, and then we just decide not to do it before the next round of smart scale? Like, is that okay?
I don't initially.
I don't see anything wrong with that.
I mean, I guess really at the end of the day, we're the ones, quote unquote, losing out on more knowledge, to your point, Barb. It's just if we have round 6 of smart scale, we have 4 failed projects. 2 of them may be funded through CVTA partially. I may put in a request for both, but never do it before round 7. But I'll request it.
Mhm.
All right, so let's start with, we'll start with entertaining a motion on recommendations for the final review parking lot items of the project selection and allocation framework. I think we should do that first, and that it will then allow us to even do the 30% question in theory. So do we have a motion to approve the project selection allocation framework with the changes?
So move.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Inman. Ms. Firestone, can you take a roll call vote?
Yes, ma'am. Let's see. Miss Amos,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Aye.
Vice Chair Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Goin,
Aye.
Mr. Vadunez,
Aye.
Mr. Yor,
Aye.
Miss Inman,
Aye.
and Chair Clark.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Awesome. So our next action item is the regional leveraging funds. And it has on here recommendation for consideration by the CVTA. Again, in your agenda packets was the letter that wrote. And so I guess the motion, let's see. So the motion is that TAC members can submit requests for funding 30% design of CVTA regional funds through a letter. I don't know, Barb, help me.
I think, Chet, didn't you already send something out to folks asking them to submit their request?
And it was the 7th, and I know we didn't. And so I just wanted to and to me, I just want to formalize it. It doesn't, we don't have, again, it's on the agenda. So while Chet has sent the letter, it says a recommendation for consideration. And so would it be that we're collecting them? So we're going to say anybody that wants to submit. Chet, when would you need those letters?
Today, I mean, the
Mhm.
intent was to have all those letters collected so that they could go to the finance committee on Wednesday. 2 days from now.
So I know Austin, will you be able to get something? And I don't know if anybody wants to send out an example. I mean, we can, I don't
I
know.
sent one.
Okay, good. All right, so everybody, we're trying to get this letter into Chet today so it can go to the finance committee. But I still wanted something with this board, this group to approve. Or do we need anything, Chet, to approve that those letters be considered for recommended for consideration by the finance committee?
I don't know. I mean, I think the request right now would be for TAC to approve something that you haven't seen. So, and I don't know how to approach finance committee with this because they won't have seen them in
I
advance of their
think-
meeting. So it's kind of a tough situation, but I mean, staff will work with TAC to do whatever you decide.
Barbara?
One concern I have is just making sure that the requested amount seems in line with a 30% plan scope.
And so do you think, Chet, like if we all submitted the letters and then, you know, you sent out everyone letter, but put it in a table format for the finance committee? And I guess then we have to think about what their ask is. It's to allow for a portion of those funds, but then we don't, again, want to impact VDOT's numbers. So what are we exactly going to say to them? What are we asking?
If a locality is requesting part of the leveraging, it's on them to keep the commitment they've made in Smart Scale to provide the leveraging that was included in the application.
So do we need to say that in our letters? Or are we going to
No.
say it in the policy? How, I mean, what's going to make
It's
me
not,
do that?
it's the
Listen to this
locality's
recording.
problem. It's not the CVTA's problem. It's not VDOT's problem. So if you have a project with 20 million in leveraging and you're going to take away $1 million of it, you have to be in a position to keep your commitment with Smart Scale to provide 20 million towards your Smart Scale project if it gets funded. And
At the
that's a
same time,
locality's issue.
a locality could lower their request for Smart Scale by that same million, right? Because the Smart Scale cycle is going to come up, and so instead of me asking them for 20,
We're
like-
only talking about ones that we think in this situation that Mark is talking about, where this is just a recommended funding scenario, it might change.
No, and I'm saying that I'm just saying for the submittal, and so say so I know what you mean. So you're saying like we're only talking about if it changes in this cycle, not if
It's still unsuccessful. Let's say it does not get picked this round in Smart Scale, and you've reduced your leveraging to 19, and you say, oh, 20 is really going to be a winner. You would need to apply for the additional money you need for 20.
Or
get
you
that
would
right?
apply for 19.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's what I was saying. I was like, or you would
Yeah.
just lower your amount.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I was just like, am I losing it here? All right, so you wouldn't, for a locality that may not have it, you just kind of lower one of your requests, your leveraging. All right, Ms. Inman?
Well, I guess just thinking, Madam Chair, but I guess to that point, if you use the funding, I mean, you would have used that money anyway, right? Towards advancing the project into the design. So I guess in this scenario, and I don't know how strict VDOT is, you could say, look, we've spent $1 million already on the design. I don't know if that would still count. No.
No,
Okay.
Yeah.
they'll make
can't
you-
get-
So the only
They want the bucks, not
Yeah,
the in-kind.
The only way is to lower the cost then. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
I
So,
think they make
know.
you spend your leveraging first. Don't they?
Well, I guess that's what I'm saying. You're kind of already doing that, right? I mean, so if you can demonstrate that you've already spent the money towards the project,
Get that fixed, Amy.
yeah. It's just one of those minor little things.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
And get them to give us credit for all the feasibility and readiness stuff we gotta do
VDOT
too,
has raised their hand,
to
Mark.
count that towards dollars.
Just pointing out that there is a bit of a difference between whether it's VDOT administered or locally administered. So there's more flexibility for the locality, certainly if it is locally administered. in terms of dollars that are coming to a project. If it is a VDOT administered project, every comment that we've heard so far is correct in that we would look for the leveraging amount that was identified, excuse me.
Okay, so again, I'm reading over Barb's letter again, and it was just really, so April TAC agenda with supporting information from staff, but we don't have it. What are we gonna do, y'all?
Do you want me to show you what I sent in?
Yeah, you mean your letter?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in everybody's agenda.
No.
Oh, you mean
The-
your letter to,
Right.
to asking for 30%?
Yeah. I think this is it. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, they're not. Oh, that's all you have?
That's right. Don't want to waste your time with a whole bunch of narrative.
No, I'm like, I have a page.
You guys are busy people.
And I mean, I can pull mine up, and then so we see that they're asking for 750,000. I don't know the total amounts of the projects, like what, when someone's talking about, does that look like reasonable PE? How do you tell from that information?
It's on the locals anyway, right? I mean, on the amount.
I'm just saying, if we're gonna go with what we submit, then that's good too.
That's true.
All right, y'all, we were doing so good. We got to get this item, we got to figure it out because we have more meetings.
Yeah, I have to leave soon.
So what do we need to do here? So chat, we don't know if we're gonna have enough information. Like I mean, I have my two numbers. So our Forest Hill one was like 800,000, and our Fall Line one was $1 million for the 30%. So do others, like I said, if we think that everybody can get theirs who wants it, because who's interested? Is it Todd? Do you have yours?
I can have them before close of business if that's what we're talking about, especially if it's in the form that Barb just showed us.
Joe, anybody else? Anybody? I know Austin, you probably can have yours. Amy?
All right, so I guess this just kind of goes against what we just talked about in the framework agreement, which is where we articulate and define what we mean by 30%. Right, so if we approve all of these, 10% or these, engineering requests, and we come to find out the project has either increased in scope or decreased in scope, but we don't know, right? Because you haven't clearly articulated exactly what it is you're going to do and what 30% design means. So
Well, the scope of the project is already defined in the application that was submitted.
okay, but I guess what I'm saying is then define of that what you mean by 30%. And
we're gonna define it in the framework.
It's a standard.
I mean, we can.
Well, but 30% can mean different things, right? And also that you're committing to just sticking to the scope of the project that was originally allocated funding. And that's the bigger point, I think, is so that, these projects don't come back that are completely different than what was originally funded.
Yeah, and we've already talked about that,
but
we're not changing the scope of a project.
Okay, but all right. But I feel like when you're asking for these funds, that needs to, it needs to be clear. I mean, you're just sending it in an email like that to me, okay, but I think it needs to be something, that clearly defines what it is, because it's too easy to come back and say, oh, well, we found this, or things have changed on the project now because we had to go back and do 30% design. Right. So anyway, I that's all. I just think going forward, it needs to be very clear as to what you're going to be doing with that and what you mean by that 30% for that project.
You mean just the definition of what deliverable you're going to get with 30% plans? Is it-
Yeah, that you're committing to doing 30%, because 30%, I'm sorry, you know, there's no real, I mean, it can be sometimes, you know, nebulous in terms of what you mean by 30%. So just be very clear as to what it is you're doing as it relates to that project, right? That you're not going back and taking another look at the scope of the project. You're actually going to engineer what you have said, right? You're not going to go back and look at other things or open it back up for other items. That you're going to be very clear that you're doing the 30% on the project that you have submitted.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's why the project is named. And it's referring to a project that's been through Smart Scale and is very scoped out in the Smart Scale application.
Then that shouldn't be difficult to articulate.
And I'm going to add it to the framework doc. Try to add some specificity to what goes into 30% plans.
So I think that, again, based on the framework, based on localities receiving the request, we will get those requests to Chet today. If New Kent can come up with a dollar amount, and think that they would want to move forward with 30% on theirs, we ask that you submit those. I think that one of the things we can say maybe is that, you know, the first round of them can come on the 30 for the 28th full body meeting. And if you come up and get a scope for the 30% with the cost and have it for the July meeting, then why can't you ask in July? So it's not a deadline. It's just if you have it ready, request it. If you need more time, check. Am I causing trouble? That statement.
Not causing trouble. This is not an agenda item on Wednesday's meeting. So Joe, I'm gonna look to you to plant a bug and Mr. Peterson's ear that we'll
Who did you
we
say
may need
needs?
to add this. I'm
Who did you
sorry,
say needs to do that, Chet? I'm sorry.
Joe, because Mr. Peterson's the chair.
Oh, okay, good. I didn't hear. I just like make
Yeah.
sure.
I
Okay,
mean, I'll
good.
reach out to him too.
Okay. So we're all good. If you don't have it today, you have more time.
Yeah, no, complete that thought again, Chet. You were saying plant a bug.
The 30% is not, this discussion is not on the finance committee agenda. So we're
Okay.
gonna need to amend the agenda. So I just want to make sure that Mr. Peterson's prepared.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thanks.
Is the allocation framework on the agenda at all, Chet?
Yes.
Okay, well, yeah, we're gonna be asking for their approval of these 30%. Okay. So that needs to be
Well, we're gonna be asking finance committee to recommend approval.
recommend approval, yes. I'm gonna skip that meeting because who's gonna explain this stuff? Barb. Awesome. So Eric, was he still able to stay with us? I don't see him anymore. Oh no, Eric Gregory, he's there. So Eric, we're gonna move. If we're good, we won't take any action on that. We've done, talk actions. And we'll go to item 9 on our agenda, which is the spa. And Eric, my folks had some comments, so I'll let you get started on that, and then I can ask any questions afterwards.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. The final version of the spa, which received a great deal of attention and input from a lot of folks. So thank you everyone for that. Was sent out week before last, and I believe Barb is gratefully, I really appreciate this. Barb said she was going to rework what should be the Excel spreadsheets, the exhibits to the spa, so that they'll actually work for in terms of inputting the fund amounts and everything. and the project costs, et cetera. And that will be used for regular reporting and everything and updated on a regular basis throughout the life of the spa for whatever project it's governing. So, but the document itself has been shared, it's been circulated. So hope you have had a chance to work on that. If you have projects to put forward, have at it. Typically, I would recommend that your local governing body approve the spa and have it sent a signed version of it for then final approval by the CVTA. But I understand that the city of Richmond, for instance, is going to do that in reverse, which is fine. We can work with either, in either way. So if you have any questions, happy to discuss it. But I think it's ready to go, and we were ready to start receiving projects.
Yes, Chet. Oops, sorry.
I think one specific thing that has been a request submitted by Henrico to have a group of projects considered for approval at the April 28th CVTA meeting.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, and we have some too, but we were asking about whether the CVTA creates the spa draft or the locality.
Locality would.
The
Yeah,
locality
and we
would.
Yeah, and everybody's good with that? Because I know some of my folks was just like VDOT usually creates it and sends it. And so I'll come back to that. Todd?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, to Chet's point, two things. Barb, we're not aware that you have created that Excel spreadsheet and distributed it yet. Is that true?
Yeah, I'm gonna submit it or send it out probably this afternoon or tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you. I was gonna do a workaround if you were not, but yeah, Henrico has one project, and Chet, we can talk further offline if need be. It's just we have a deadline, our deadline of this Thursday to meet our next board agenda for the second meeting in April, and it's regarding the funding for the Fall Line Trail for the Henrico sections, which was done as one allocation from CVTA, but spread over subsections that have different funding sources. So for sake of ease of moving that allocation to phases as those estimates change, we were trying to do it under one agreement, which I know we had some offline conversations with some of the developers of the spa, and it's all doable from the spa standpoint. You can put multiple UPCs and so forth in there. So that was going to be our approach. But Chet, if we need to talk further, we can do that.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that, Madam Chair. I think that the goal today would be to not have the appendices in front of you, but to support the authority considering those agreements, those spas at the time of the April 28th meeting.
Yeah, so I think we could be good with that because well, one of the things I was wondering though, as soon as I looked at this spa agreement, was like, the project identifier. Have you given those project identifiers?
No, we're working out that. We had a call about that this morning internally, and we're working out the numbering scheme. Henrico had asked the same thing. But if you can get us the draft appendices, we can make sure that the identifiers are shown.
Okay. Got it. So we'll work on those once we get the spreadsheet from Barb. Oh yeah, because otherwise, I mean, the spa, you don't have to submit that much on the top page without the appendix. It's like, what's the project name?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the spa is a template and it's very straightforward, and the real meat of it is in the appendices.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay. So everyone, let's see, we motion to recommend approval of project specific spas. So, Eric, we're looking for, because we don't have all of the different projects in front of us on the spas. So what action do you want?
I don't need any action on this particular item today. I mean, it's and I mean, if y'all want to take action to approve this draft, it doesn't matter. It's already been approved by the CVTA. So
Yeah.
I don't really need any action from you all on this today. I think this is just an update to let you know that it's available for localities to start using it. Once we all have the spreadsheets from Barb, I think that would be the time to start filling in the blanks, and the CVTA is ready to start receiving spas with everything completed for their consideration and approval for regionally funded projects. So
Okay,
we're
good.
heading in the right direction.
And thanks, Eric. And so Chet, are you gonna include the spa plus the appendices in the full body's agenda for the April 28th meeting? Or
Yes,
just
that
the
was
listing of
the
the
intent.
project?
The intent was to include the entire spa with the appendices for
Okay.
each jurisdiction that is ready for action in
No,
April.
I agree. So
But I think
what's our
that
deadline? We need a deadline to have them back to you so that can happen.
right.
And a week from the 28th, oh wait, we're in April. Help us, Lord. Help us, help us.
If those could be, I guess I
Probably
would
next
defer to
Friday.
Todd. If those could be done by close of business on Friday, that should give
This
us enough
Friday
time.
or the 21st Friday?
14th.
Okay. And then again, these spas are going to be a continuous, although we won't come back for the full body until July. So you're either going to get your spa done on the 28th or you're going to wait till the 14th.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right.
For clarify, these are for locally administered projects.
Yeah. So anybody who's
We're
VDOT doing
we're
it,
also
don't
working
worry.
with VDOT to line up any VDOT administered.
Oh, and thank you for saying that. And I know
Where
Barb.
that's gonna
Oh yeah,
stack
Barbara
up.
Nelson. Barb with the port.
Yep.
Hey Barb, I know I probably caught you. Quick question: Are your steps moving forward with your SPA agreement between CVTA and VDOT for your port project?
Yes, it will be as stipulated in our application. It will be a VDOT administered project. However, what the port will do is, because Hanover County was our sponsor, we will execute a sidebar agreement with Hanover County that, you know, if there are any cost overruns or anything, that we're responsible for that. And I had recently, if Mark is still on, yes, he can attest that I had sent him a note last week about checking in on where we stood with the project. So we're still ready for it to all move forward.
So you have not gotten your agreement between the CVTA and VDOT?
It's something that I reached out to Mark last week to, it's one of the things that's on our list to work through with VDOT. We have not done it yet, correct?
Okay.
And we will be, yes, absolutely.
Okay, Mr. Mitchell?
Yes, I'd just like to raise a point of information that kind of supports Barbara's comments. We have a spa also with VDOT. VDOT's going to administer the project for the safety improvements along the trail, and they are supposedly working on all of it. And that's going to be between them and the CVTA. I don't think we're actually going to see it per se, other than a copy. So it's similar to what she's saying, is VDOT, if they're administering it, they're keeping control of it. I'll put it. I'm not sure control is the right word, but
yeah, perfect. And so one quick question, Eric. the SPA agreement, are each of those that VDOT administered, they don't get each of those approved every time, or they do? Like approved by CVTA. So once didn't we do like the broad one where, well, I know it was like the whole MOU or I don't know.
Yeah, the VDOT SPA template document was an exhibit or an appendices or an appendix rather to the MOU between CVTA and VDOT, which governs that relationship. So each time that we're going to have a VDOT administered project funded by CVTA, we'll have a new SPA come forward with the UPC. It'll be per project, basically. So we'll have a new UPC, a new SPA, and like the locality SPA that we were just talking about a moment ago, each one of those is going to have its own appendices with all the funding, the dollar amounts filled in, and the schedule and all that stuff. So that's my understanding of how that should work.
Awesome. And I just wanted to bring it up just in case, because I didn't know how your process was moving. So we do just wanted to touch on those that may be ready to start their VDOT some of their projects, that they too have a clear understanding of what to expect and what's flowing, just so that you all can be moving ahead as well. So just had a quick question about that. Mr. Riblet?
Yeah, thank you, Dorona. Just a clarification, the CVTA CTB SPA agreements are actually ones that are endorsed by the CTB and the CVTA. So it's not just a CVTA schedule that we need to coordinate, it's also a CTB schedule that we need to coordinate to get those fully executed. The only exception to that was for Fall Line Trail related projects. The CTB did delegate the authority to the commissioner for future CVTA CTB SPA agreements related to the Fall Line. We don't have to get on the CTB's agenda for that. Not going to be the same for every other project. Every other project would be a CTB agenda as well as a CVTA agenda that we would need to coordinate.
Awesome. And so do we think that though, maybe, I don't know, maybe for our next meeting or the meeting after, since we have some time between April and July, we could maybe just have like something that helps coordinate those schedules, like the upcoming CTB, along with the CVTA, just for any of those rural or counties that VDOT is administering, just to start to give them an idea, and maybe they can align some of their processes amongst their local governments with what we're doing. I just think that may be helpful for them to see that and start to, feel these projects beginning to happen and keeping up with them, especially for, elected officials love to be, in the know when stuff is happening. It's just to keep everything in front of everybody, to keep things moving. We don't want, anybody to be left out. Mr. Mitchell, you still have your hand up. Did you have more questions, or is the leftover? I think it's leftover. So we're almost done. Item 10, since we don't have any action items there, CVTA TAC member comments. Anyone have any comments for the group? Hearing none, our next meeting is May the 8th. And if there's no further questions, this meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to some of you in a few.
Thank you.